Hello there. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Hello There, a Star Wars podcast. As always, I'm Anthony Palm. I'm joined by Nathaniel Hicks. And this week, we're doing something a little different. We've been talking about this for a long time. We're doing our first commentary track. So we're starting with episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I figure it's fitting since the 20th anniversary. My God. Just happened 20 years. Oh, my God. This movie's been out for 20 years.
Yeah. 100%.
It's so weird. I've been saying it and talking about it the past couple weeks, but I never really processed this movie has been out for 20 years. So yeah, let's get into it. So you and I both have we're watching the Blu-ray version. I have the original Blu-ray release with the really awesome little cards in for each movie. I think the discs themselves are the same between my version and your version.
And I have the 2015 version.
Yes, yeah, I like mine a lot better. It's got a lot of really cool illustrations in the
yours.
packaging.
Mine's just so basic.
Yeah, that's I just bought Avatar: The Last Airbender on Blu-ray, and it's the same type of case. So
yeah.
I've always loved this one. I almost lost my Phantom Menace Blu-ray disc because when I traded in one of my older Xbox Ones, the disc was still in the console, and I had a meltdown. I think I talked about it. I might have talked about it on the show. And so we're going to be talking about episode 1, The Phantom Menace. We're hoping to do all 11 movies, right? Because there's 9, 10, 11. Well, it would be not once episode 9 is out, it would be 11
saga movies.
Yeah. So it would be all 9 saga movies once 9 is out. Plus, plus I want to do Solo and Rogue One as well. So we'll figure out the priority and the order of them. I kind of for the saga ones, I want to get through the anthology ones. I want to get through the saga ones first.
Yeah.
So I figure just work our way up to episode 9, start with Phantom Menace. And so the way we're going to do this is we're just going to go straight through. I don't really want to pause anywhere because that gets kind of confusing, and anyone listening along, they're not really sure. It's harder to follow along that way. And if you're anything like me, I actually just kind of like listening to commentary tracks, just on their own and hearing people talk about the movies, even without the movies on. Sometimes I'll do that for I'll listen to it kind of almost like a podcast, which is what this show is. But so let's get going. You and I are both zeroed out. We are past the first 20th Century Fox screen. We are past the blue parental guidance screen. And so let's do it. So we're going to count down. So I'll do 3, 2, 1. What should we say? 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1.
Hold on 1 second, because I'm at. Okay, now we're good. I was at the 20th Century Fox. I'm good now.
So you're zeroed out.
Yeah.
You're past the 20th century, the first one, not the old looking one.
I'm at where the timer says 2:16.
2:16:10, it says.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect. All right, so we'll do 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1 is a more fitting phrase we could do, a Star Wars related phrase that I can't think of.
I'll just say 3, 2, 1, go, because I can't think of anything else.
Yeah. All right, so we'll do. So you're ready?
Yeah.
I'm ready. The listeners, if anyone's listening, hope you're ready. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. And now we're hearing the 20th Century Fox fanfare and Lucasfilm Limited.
It's almost like they're unlimited now.
So, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Did you see this movie in theaters back in '98?
I did.
Because this was really my first Star Wars experience. I had seen the original trilogy. I mean, I was 8 years old, so I saw bits and pieces of the original trilogy, but no one ever sat me down and actually really had me watch a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Until Phantom Menace. I actually went for my birthday, early birthday, because my birthday was in June. And I don't know, man. I know it's kind of rubber banded where people hated this movie back then and now they like it more now. But I always loved this movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as a kid. And then even whenever I showed my wife the Star Wars movies in order before The Force Awakens, I was like, I really like this movie. Like, it's one of those I expected to watch it as an adult and be like, oh, I see what everyone else saw, but I didn't. And I was actually fascinated how political it was. Like, I had completely forgotten just how.
I feel like people complained about that part, but that's the part I like about it.
Yeah,
you know?
it's important. It's important for what happens.
Yeah, like I was at a bar once, and the bartender. I was talking to my friend about Star Wars, and the bartender just walks over to me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like trade taxation. That's what I want to see Star Wars for." And I was like, "But I actually do want to see Star Wars for like stuff like that. I like knowing that the galaxy is bigger than just Tatooine. You know." Granted, we'll see Tatooine again in this movie, but interesting fact about this opening section. I forget the actress's name. I apologize. But the captain of this ship that the two ambassadors are on, she's one of only 3 or 4 actually Scottish actresses or actors in all of Star Wars. One of them obviously being Liam Neeson. He plays an Irishman, but is he Irish? But he plays a Scottish, or
I mean, it's definitely an Irish accent, but he's Scottish. He's Irish.
I don't remember. But something along the lines of that. So here we get the first sight of the battle droids and the vulture droids. Now that ship is actually a model, and people don't realize how many models are actually in this movie and really the prequels in general.
Yeah, I got into an argument the other day with someone about they were talking, just about the CG. I was like, well, no, you don't realize how much practical effects. He was like, but where? And I was like, I can't remember offhand all of them, but there's more practical effects.
Almost all the the vulture droids obviously are CGI, but most of the ships are models. Even once we get to Revenge of the Sith, Utapau is a giant. It was a humongous model that they stuck a camera down into.
Yeah. So I definitely have a greater appreciation for these characters after listening to Master and Apprentice, 100%.
So if the listeners aren't familiar, Master and Apprentice is a recently released. Right now, we're watching this on 5/25/2019. Recently released Star Wars novel that we listened to an audiobook about Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan. I think it's about 10 years earlier, right?
Yeah. He was 17 at the time. Well, that was one thing I pointed out. I was like, all the creatures, the character creatures, are practical. And he was like, point one out to me.
Except for the Gungans.
Right, yeah, except for the Gungans.
I think the Gungans are probably the root of most of people's disdain for this movie.
Yeah.
Not mine, but most people. Now, what I never understood about this scene is if the Neimoidians wanted to kill the Jedi, why didn't they just poison the tea they gave them? Why do they go through this entire exercise of trying to use Dioxis on them and then sending in the droids and then sending in the destroyers? Just poison them. What are you doing? Unless they just don't have poison on the control ship, I guess. I don't know. Now, back in 99, did you know that Emperor Palpatine, or Darth Sidious was Senator Palpatine the first time you saw this movie?
No, it was an enigma to me.
See, I kind of, because I had at least seen Return of the Jedi, so I kind of had a clue.
I had too, but it's one of those it's I was just too much into. Oh, there we go. It was just too much into the moment. It's one of those. I was reading a book that showed the character chronology throughout the movie, so I was like, oh, that's who that was. It was one of those I just didn't pay attention to.
Right.
And then this is just comical.
Now, what I never understood though, this is a fart joke that I didn't realize was a fart joke.
Yeah.
I never realized that. Okay, so we got our first Roger Roger of the movie. Now, in the actual movies, the droids saying Roger Roger really isn't that comical. It's just kind of a thing. They just say Roger Roger. It's in the Clone Wars that it's Roger Roger. It's really comical in the series, but I never understood why people had umbrage with them saying Roger Roger in the movies. It's so robotic sounding. It's not comedic. I don't know.
I love the soundtrack for the prequels. It's
I
just so
love.
good.
So like right about here, you hear the Force theme for the first time, but like it's a super high, like up tempo version of it. And then we see Qui-Gon stabbing the door, which was awesome. So here's the Force theme. So I got so confused in '99 when they called him to droidicas, but then Obi-Wan calls them destroyers, and I was like, "What? Am I hearing words right now?"
See, how do you feel about that moment?
About them warping away?
Yeah,
like super speed. It's. I'm fine with it, but it's just weird that they George never brought that back in the prequels.
Yeah,
them, like having super speed.
The jump, I understand, like the massive Force jump, but
like Obi-Wan later on in the movie with the jump, and even Anakin and later on in other movies. But it's one of those things where I feel like if it had at least come back one more time, it would have been less weird. But it's the fact that that's the only time they ever use like superhuman speed.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember in the original theatrical release if that happened or if that was a revision for the Blu-rays. I just literally don't know.
The only one I can think of is Luke's jump from the carbonite chamber.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty fast.
So now we're getting our first view of Queen Amidala. Now, this actually is Natalie Portman.
Actually is?
That's Natalie Portman. So the only time it's Keira Knightley, and I didn't know this until later, but actually Natalie Portman did the ADR for Keira Knightley's parts. So it's never even Keira Knightley talking, which blew me away because Queen Amidala's voice is totally different than Padme's voice. You know what I mean? Like she has a very, like a lot deeper of a voice. So I didn't realize that until recently, but I believe any scene where you can see the handmaidens, it's Keira Knightley. And any scene where it's just her with like where it's just her with C.O. Bibble or just her with like Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan or whatever, I believe it is Natalie Portman. So now we get our first view of Theed City. And we see Senator Palpatine as a hologram. So I love the architecture of Naboo. It's so gorgeous. Yeah, so this is Natalie. And you can kind of hear it in her voice. So C.O. Bibble is the governor of Naboo. And he is like the most meme-worthy character in like all of the movies.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Captain Panaka talking to Queen Amidala. Now, I want you to just keep Captain Panaka in mind for the remainder of the movie because he kind of comes into play in like the expanded, like the now Disney canon expanded universe later on, and he's kind of a turncoat, and it kind of gets me mad. I love this shot of the droid carrier landing on Naboo. Man, John Williams scores. It's so good. Oh man, the Trade Federation theme. It's so good. Like it feels like it belongs with the Imperial March. Like obviously the Imperial March is more iconic. People are gonna, people will know what the Imperial March is, like the second they hear it, whereas this they might not. But it fits in the Star Wars universe the same way the Imperial March does,
Yeah.
Like you hear the Trade Federation theme and like it's evil. Like it's just an evil theme.
See, so, I feel like the bad part about Blu-ray is that it's so detailed. You can tell things like that first shot of Jar Jar. That's clearly full CGI. Granted, also this was a '99.
Right. So yeah, you got to keep in mind this is like one of the first ever instances of this type of technology being used. So, I love this line: "The ability to speak does not make you intelligent." No, get out of here. I love that. Where he's basically straight up just like, just telling him like, "You're an idiot. Leave me alone. Get out of here. I got stuff to do." I love that line. And so now here we see Obi-Wan getting chased by two Trade Federation STAP. What would you consider those? They look like pogo sticks.
They're like turret speeders.
Yeah, they're called. It's a STAP. I think I forgot what it stands for. See, excuse me, like that's probably a lot of where people complain. Now, Tay actually really liked Jar Jar. Tay's my wife.
I still like Jar Jar as a character. I was actually a couple days ago, because of the 20-year anniversary, I was watching the behind the scenes, the beginning of the Phantom Menace, and it shows the process where they originally, when they originally shot principal photography, they were going to have the actor just in the suit and then just animate his head. And then when they got to actually doing it, they were like, okay, so look at the two. Which one looks better? And they obviously went with the full CGI. And George is like, okay, cool. We just wasted $100,000 on a suit for no reason. And he was like, well, there was a reason. Like, it actually improved what's going on. But originally, this character was going to be
as practical as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. But it just ended up not looking right.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, too, I mean, because it's 99, the textures just aren't as like you could just tell the resolution on the textures for Jar Jar just aren't really there, and you could see him noticeably improved in Attack of the Clones.
Oh yeah,
not that he has much screen time in Attack of the Clones, but
for a reason.
So I always thought these rebreather things that the Jedi have, because we're descending down into Otogunga now. Okie day. I just like, who wrote the Jar Jar lines? They're too funny. But these rebreather tools that they use to breathe on the water, I thought were so freaking cool when I was little. Because like I said, I was 8 years old when I saw this movie. I thought it was so awesome. And now we see Otogunga.
These toys, I think, were the best. Like,
now this is one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars. Is like with the music, and you see Otogunga, you see like the lights underwater. And it just it sounds so kind of wondrous and mystical, and it looks just so gorgeous because you have the bright lights of Otogunga surrounded by the darkness of the water, and then they walk through these shield type weird gooey things, and it's just so cool. I don't know.
And you could see in the acting too, Obi-Wan, like Qui-Gon just going through, because he's like, I've probably experienced this, but Obi-Wan like very cautiously going through and then like
right
turning around. So that's great.
It's very subtle, but it's very cool. And now we have Captain Tarpals. See, I even feel like Captain Tarpals looks better than Jar Jar.
It does.
I think it's because Jar Jar's supposed to be like a smoother skinned character, and Tarpals looks he's a little more rugged. He's got like some more detail on his face. He's got like the little whisker things coming off his face,
Yeah. Here we go.
You, sir, cannot be here. So this scene is actually really important because the political ramifications of the scene are really important. Like, back in 99, people are like, I just want to see lightsabers and I want to see Jedi and stuff. But it's really important. Like, it's like detailing basically the Naboo have been not at war, but they've been kind of in conflict with the Gungans for ages.
Yeah.
And I mean, Boss Nass is straight up saying, like, I don't care what happens to them. Like, they could all get killed by the droids. I don't care. I don't know how they're going to get down here because they're robots. And so we see the first instance of Jedi mind trick. Qui-Gon's using it on Boss Nass to get transport. Now, what I always wondered, what's a bongo? It's like some of the dialogue in this movie is just so funny. So I always wondered, why doesn't Boss Nass have stalks for eyes?
I don't know.
You know, like he's got like his eyes are kind of set in, whereas I mean, unless it's the headdress he has around him that maybe no, they're definitely set in more. And so this is the first instance we hear of a life debt in the Star Wars universe. Which, of course, everyone assumed that Chewbacca had a life debt that he owed to Han Solo, which in the movie Solo we find out isn't quite. Not that it's not true, but it's kind of up for interpretation. I don't know if Han and Chewie ever acknowledge like Chewie has a life debt to Han, or if Chewie just internalizes that he has a life debt to Han and stays with him, but never says it. I don't know. And again, just look at how beautiful Otogungo looks.
Yeah.
It just looks so cool. Like I just want to go there.
This scene is pure Star Wars in terms of making you see a world that you want to be a part of and just the mysticism, like you said, behind it.
Right. It's the world building that makes the prequel so good, you know?
Clumsy.
You were banished because you were clumsy.
You still might be saying that.
And the bongo, I had the Lego for the bongo way back in the day. I think I still have it. It's at my grandparents' house. And it's just such a cool design. It's just so cool. It looks like it fits with Naboo. We have the OPC killer chasing them underwater now.
Yeah, like I was saying, the toys for the Phantom Menace were one of my favorites just because I felt like all of them were quality and they were just all so cool.
That's the thing is they were cool. And we didn't really get any cool toys for the sequel trilogy.
I mean, we got the clone stuff, which was cool. Like, especially in Attack of the Clones, you had like there's always.
No, I'm saying like Force Awakens, Last Jedi.
Oh yeah. Mostly, it's them
and
like
OPC killer is now ripped in half.
Finally,
a bigger fish.
Finalizing like lightsaber toys, basically. But yeah, I mean, they're just relying on Black Series now, honestly.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I remember I had that Darth Maul turret lightsaber toy where it would shoot the foam discs at you and you had the lightsaber to block them. It was like a training thing.
I remember that. And just think about how much money went into the background like droids in these scenes. Like in the last scene where you saw the hologram of Darth Sidious, there was like B1 battle droids in the background that you just couldn't even, they're blurred out. You know what I mean? Because of depth of field. And like how much money was spent on those droids that you literally can't even like see any detail in because they're blurred out. Like it's just crazy. And Jar Jar talking smack about the Force. See, I think that Jar Jar is actually a brilliant character. I think some of his lines are like genuinely great. So this sequence where like it's the three of them in the bongo and then they lose power and then they get power back and then they're chased by the giant demon eel. This is like all three of my personalities all at once. Anytime anything goes wrong in my life.
Yeah.
But like one part of my brain is like, relax, you're fine, chill out. And then another part of me is freaking out like, oh my God.
I like how subtle, like he touched Qui-Gon, touched his shoulder, was like, relax. And Obi-Wan's like, you overdid it.
So we don't really get a good idea of how long they're traveling through the planet core. How long do you think it has been since they
enough
left
time
Oregon?
for the troops to amass to Theed?
True. Good point.
So probably
Dude, the Vulture's droids are so cool, like when they're actually in flight formation.
So one thing I find super interesting is how quickly, it could just be because we're talking over it, but how quickly it went from, no, Your Highness, we're not going to invade. And then seconds later, we're invading.
Well, that's just because they were full of crap.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if that's a pacing thing or if that's just how fast it happened. Because
Now, another
typically there's
thing,
a beat in between.
another thing that I didn't notice until like the past like maybe 10 years of watching this movie is I always for some reason assumed that the Nemoidians were really short, and the Nemoidians are actually really like large figures. Like if you watch like the next scene, you'll see them like escorting Padme, and when right here, and when Newt Gunray says pro system, like they're just so much taller than everyone. Like it's crazy. I never realized it.
Yeah, and they make them more lengthy, more linky.
So this is Keira Knightley right here, and you could tell her face does look different.
Yeah,
because Padme is one of the handmaidens now. Pro system.
So probably once they invaded, she did the switch out.
Yeah, so the last scene she was in the red dress with the little lantern bulb things on the bottom. That was Natalie,
and you can clearly see Natalie right behind them as they walked past.
Right now, there's an important thing. There's an important line that Padme says to Keira Knightley, and so Keira Knightley's character's name is Sabe, and obviously she's like the royal body double. And so Padme says something to Sabe that's actually really important, which I'll point out when we get there in a couple minutes. But so right now we have Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan sneaking around with Jar Jar Binks also doing some kind of attempt at stealth.
Yeah, right there in particular.
And so we have the first actual action of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan kind of just whooping droid butt without getting taken back. So C.O. Bibble's escorting Padme off to the side, and I always thought these Naboo soldiers, like I always thought their helmets were kind of funny looking. And I do I pointed it out to you for when we were both listening to Master and Apprentice. I thought it was kind of funny that the narrator of the book does more of an Irish accent than Liam Neeson does.
Yeah.
Okay, right here. So Padme is about to say, "We are brave, Your Highness." So right now they're talking about, should Padme leave? Should Queen Amidala leave? Should she go to the Senate and plead her case? And so Padme saying, "We are brave, Your Highness," is her giving Sabe confirmation. Yes, that's what we're going to do. Because it is a little weird. Like, how do you, when Sabe is not the real queen, how does she make decisions for the queen? And so they have a lot. So I just recently finished Queen's Shadow, which is a story of Padme Amidala, post Phantom Menace. And they go into that. There's a whole kind of hidden code language that they have for how to communicate, all the handmaidens and Amidala, how they communicate with each other. It's really interesting.
One big takeaway that I got just recently from the Master and Apprentice is when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon have the dialogue about why Qui-Gon kept Obi-Wan on the basic principles of lightsaber combat. And once he gives that reasoning, like you see it throughout the movies. Like Obi-Wan doesn't do any super fancy lightsaber combat. It's very...
It almost becomes part of his lifestyle.
Yeah, it is. Like it just
even when he's flying, he's like, no, nothing too fancy. In Revenge of the Sith, right? In the opening Battle of Coruscant, when he's like, nothing too fancy.
Ewan McGregor, man, just
hey, old boyos. So we, for better or for worse, this is where we first meet R2-D2. Now I don't know if you remember in 1999. But I remember, for some reason, Rick Ollie had his own action figure.
Yeah.
And what significance he has other than just being the guy that
says probably a contractual
pretty wooden lines. Like, but that's the thing is, like, in the prequels, we got action figures for everything.
Yeah, that's true.
The sequel trilogy, it's like, you get Kylo Ren, you get... Do we even have a Hux one? I don't even know if there was a Hux.
I think so. I'm pretty sure there's a Hux one.
Like, you know what I'm saying, though? Like, we don't really... Like, I feel like there was action figures for everything in the prequel and obviously the original trilogy. Now, I kind of
Plot
people had
there's
an issue with. Well, there's plot armor for R2, of course.
yeah.
People had an issue in The Last Jedi with Luke saying laser sword, but
They say it in
I
universe.
well, Anakin says it in this movie, first of all, but which we'll get to. But I just feel like they've always said weird, sort of human type dialogue too. Like Rick Ollie, Captain Panaka says we're going to be sitting ducks, and it's like that's such a human Earth world type of phrase, you know.
I don't know if it's just because we're listening with headphones, but movies like this, like you can totally, especially if you're like technically inclined, you can tell the ADR.
I was just about to say I noticed it a lot in that scene just there. I think it might just be that scene though, because it stood out to me really hard too. Where I Captain Panaka talking, and I was like, "This is really 80 yard." So here's where we meet our friend Darth Maul.
It's also so funny just how short like Ray Park is. It's one of those
That they had to have Palpatine sit down so that he didn't look shorter. Although I don't know, is he on risers when they show him in Coruscant?
No, I don't think so because Qui-Gon towers over him.
How does Darth Maul just walk around Coruscant casually without anyone being like, that guy is definitely a bad guy?
I don't know. Probably hidden channels.
Okay, so this is Natalie again. I'm sorry, this is Kira again. She's in the same outfit, of course. And you see Padme in the background. No, this is Natalie doing ADR for Kira, though. Now, I always thought this kind of messed up. Like, she's straight up like, yeah, this is for you bossing me around all the time. I'm going to make you go clean the carbon scoring on this astromech. And so, of course, this is supposed to mirror A New Hope. You know, when Luke is cleaning the carbon scoring on R2. Haven't met C-3PO yet, of course, but in place we get Jar Jar Binks.
That's what I love about these is especially when you watch. Oh, that scene was really bad CGI right there. Just the shadowing was really bad. But when you watch behind the scenes of these movies, especially in this one, like George talks about poetry, talks about like mirroring what's happened in the original trilogy. And that's really important and really cool to like notice those details. But of course, that's just overtaken by the hate for the prequel movies. Now, I don't think the hate's nearly that much anymore, obviously, because of the sequel trilogy. But
now that theme just there, where they're landing, sounds so close to Kylo Ren's theme.
It does. It really does.
And I always wondered if John Williams had based Kylo's theme on that phrasing, not because it related to it in any way or anything, but just because he just like, did he always really like that one little phrase and want to reuse it? And he found like it fits this character, so I'm going to reuse that phrase. I was always curious to that. So at this point, Qui-Gon Jinn knows that Padme is Queen Amidala.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he's not taking Padme with him. I never understood this reasoning. She's curious about the planet, so take my handmaiden who...
Well, I think like what you were just saying, I think it's one of those. He was like, "All right, fine. You're not going to stop about it. I know what you're doing. I'll take you with me."
Well, no, Qui-Gon definitely knows, but I never understood like Captain Panaka being like, she has to go. But like, I feel like Captain Panaka would have been like, nah, I'm not letting the queen go.
Yeah. So funny about this, especially on the behind the scenes. They shot this in Tanzania, like they did A New Hope, but
No, I thought it was not Tanzania. That's Africa.
I mispronounced probably.
Oh my god, I'm having such a brain fart. Oh my god, I know this. I'm so embarrassed right now. Anyways, continue. I'll look it up.
I got it too. Tatooine filmed.
Tatooine shooting location. I'm so embarrassed that I don't remember this.
Yeah, Tanzania. I'm a Toydarian. My tricks don't work on me.
So, did you ever notice Watto's neckbeard?
Yeah, I noticed it more in Attack of the Clones.
Really bad in Attack of the Clones. It's really gross.
Anyway,
so now we meet our hero Anakin. Tunisia.
Thank
where
you.
I was thinking, but it looks like they might have filmed different parts of Tatooine in different parts of the world.
But anyway, where they shot for the Force, for the Phantom Menace. Oh, this is a great scene. Here's where we're getting Anakin getting his first line, "Are you an angel?" And what's funny about this too is in the behind the scenes, they show the casting for, and of course, I'm saying this, you've probably seen, if you're listening to this, you've probably seen these, but it's been a while since I watched them. And it was funny how they had 3 other kids and the other 2 did too perfect of a job. And I think it's because Jake's performance was like more pure is the reason why they cast him.
Yeah, what I love about the scene is when he's talking about the angels on the moons of Viego. Like, I love that. Like, at first you're like, wait, angels, like God and heaven and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, there's like in-universe explanations. Like, they're not like literal, like earthly angels. That's just what they're called in the Star Wars universe. And we end up seeing those in the Clone Wars series, which I thought was an awesome kind of like acknowledgement of, that one little kind of quick tangent in Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
And so now we see Jar Jar punching the pit droid in the eye or the nose, I guess.
That was a really awesome line though when she's like, "Are you a slave?" He was like, "I'm a person and my name is Anakin." Like the ferocity in his voice was really nice.
Dude, Watto's neckbeard. I just can't do the neckbeard. How does he shave it? What does he? I don't know.
But what I was saying about the filming is they had all of this. They had all the pods for the pod race and everything else set up. And in the middle of filming, there was a massive storm with 70-mile-per-hour winds. And you see them going to the set, and the producer's like, "Let's go look at the pods." And they're just completely ripped apart. And so that completely put back schedule. They had to do the pod stuff at the end of filming because they had to remake everything.
Right.
But good old Watto. Remember having a Watto toy.
There's like a weird cult behind Watto. It's like, I don't know. It's very strange. And for some reason, Jar Jar is trying to balance what looks like a bunch of film canisters.
Well, you can thank Greg Miller for that, probably.
No, there's been a Watto cult a long time before Greg Miller.
Annie.
I definitely think the ADR thing that we're noticing is because we have headphones in.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely.
I think it's definitely because of that. I gotta say, man, like I don't know why people gave Jake Lloyd so much crap. I thought he's really not bad. Like, you got to take into account how old the kid is. And I thought, I mean, maybe like some other lines later on in the movie, but like him talking to Watto, people don't realize like he's not talking to a real person.
Yeah.
In those scenes, you know what I mean? And he says them with, a lot of honesty and kind of, like you said, like innocence. And I don't know, man. I can't believe people like gave a child such a hard time. I said Luke Skywalker. Like Mark Hamill even said, like, it's just not right how much crap he Jake Lloyd got when he was a child.
Yeah, and like Ahmed Best too. Like the fact that we have to talk about, like, I don't know about Jake, but how Ahmed Best almost committed suicide because of Jar Jar Binks. That's just sad. That's just sad to hear.
Because of the hate he got from quote unquote fans.
Yeah.
Which it really is true that Ahmed Best was at the forefront of all this technology. We wouldn't have Iron Man without Ahmed Best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We wouldn't have Thanos. We wouldn't have Avatar without Ahmed Best. And people just don't really seem to they because they didn't like the way the dialogue was written for Jar Jar Binks. You know, it's very unfortunate. So now Anakin is staring down a particularly dangerous Doug named Sebulba. I love how Anakin just casually says he's about to be turned into orange goo. Just so casually.
The one that got me years later was someone's like, "Hey, did you know what Qui-Gon's communicator was?" And it was like that. It was like a razor,
the Gillette razor. Yeah.
Gillette razor.
That I've actually known for a while.
I had that as a kid too. I remember. Not the Gillette razor, the actual toy of the communicator.
It was the it was called something, right, where you could actually put your little figures onto it and then they would talk in like real bad, like lo-fi audio. What was it called? It's not like a chat link. It was something like I don't remember. So there we see Anakin seeing Qui-Gon's lightsaber on his hilt. So is this old lady force sensitive? She goes, "My bones are aching. There's a storm coming." What? I mean, maybe. I guess now that I'm a little older, I guess I kind of understand that. Like my body hurts too anytime there's a storm coming.
Yeah, anytime it's going to rain.
But it's a sandstorm, though. It's not a rainstorm. You know, so I don't know.
Well, it's still probably barometric pressure.
Now, I always loved the architecture behind these like houses.
I did too.
They're
kind of like adobe houses.
Yeah, right. That's kind of always what I got out of them too. So now we're meeting Shmi Skywalker for the first time. So
there's Maz Kanata.
We
think
the space pirate queen or whatever, right? Is what they called her.
Yeah. Do you notice the wiffle ball scoop?
Yeah. I like when I saw this back in the day, I always knew that too. I was like, really? Like that's come on. It's like unapologetically it's like those plastic toys you used to like pretend to play what was it called? Like what's the sport with the thing? And so we get the first mention of the pod race. Why can't I think of this? But they play it in Teen Wolf.
Oh God, what's it called?
It's not badminton.
No. Lacrosse.
Yeah, it's like one of those like fake like little kid lacrosse things that like you scoop the ball up with. So the interesting thing about C-3PO with this movie is that it's the only time Anthony Daniels obviously wasn't in the suit because he couldn't be in the suit because he's just doesn't have his plating on.
Yeah, he's puppeteered. Which that CGI didn't look bad because they obviously had to wipe out the
Gillette razor
green screen. Yep.
Now C-3PO I thought was an actual animatronic.
Yeah, he is. He's puppeteered by Anthony Daniels. Like
right.
Anthony Daniels in the green screen suit.
And so we see our first view of Coruscant, the Coruscant night skyline. And we got our first and only dialogue from Darth Maul. Tatooine is sparsely populated. Now, this is Ray Park in the costume, but it is ADR'd by oh my god, I always forget his name. I'm like forgetting everything this commentary. I'm so bad. I gotta like remember. I gotta like do my like brush up.
What's really nice.
But what was his name that did the voice for Darth Maul? He was in Guardians of the Galaxy. He was the new Tick for the Amazon series.
Oh God.
Peter Serafinowicz. He does the voice for Darth Maul in this movie, and then of course Sam Witwer would assume the voice of Darth Maul later on, both in theatrical releases in Solo and in the Clone Wars, of course, and
Yeah.
Rebels.
Don't do that again.
And I know it's kind of on the nose, but I always like the the kind of like must have Jedi reflexes, and then him using his Jedi reflexes. And there we have Jake Lloyd saying laser sword.
Well, in some aspect.
But like, so Qui-Gon tells a 9-year-old boy, he's 9, right?
Yeah.
Anakin, I don't know if Jake Lloyd was 9, but he's 9. Basically their whole plan. And it's like, okay. Now look at the subtleties of Jar Jar during this scene.
Well, see, that's what I think the benefit of having Ahmed Best in the actual suit, and the reason why they did it was so.
Like even when he's not talking, you see like the way his throat kind of moves, and like when he swallows, and
yeah, the reason, definitely the best reason why to put him there is so they can interact with someone instead of just having to see a tennis ball or whatever.
right. Now this is still the worst idea in the history of Star Wars bad ideas.
Anakin's idea.
Like, yeah, let me go enter in a super mega death race, and maybe you'll lose everything. Maybe I'll die and you won't have a ship.
I don't remember the actress's name, but Shmi Skywalker is a really good role. Like, it's I really like her character.
I actually knew her name and I can't remember it because she returns in the Mortis trilogy in Clone Wars. There's the one scene where the brother, like he pretends to be Shmi, and they actually bring her back. I gotta look it up.
I think it's at this point that Qui-Gon knows something. Like he
Pranoa
suspects
August
something.
is the actress.
Would you agree with that?
What was that?
Like at that moment, Qui-Gon probably senses something. Like this is where he starts.
He senses that Anakin has force sensitivity. I don't know if he knows that he's the chosen one yet.
Yeah.
I love Qui-Gon. Like he knows that she's the queen, and just straight up is like the queen doesn't need to know, and like he knows. So we have Watto giving some backstory on prior pod races, just to kind of build up. Anakin is good. Did you ever find the weird suction cup feet Watto has? Guardians are very strange aliens.
Yeah.
They have like this weird anteater snout, but then they have these big tusks. We have a bunch of gonk droids in the back. So here we see just a bunch of dewbacks just hanging out near the ship.
Yeah, this is a very important scene where Qui-Gon's basically saying, "Hey, your son might be a Jedi."
And it's interesting that Shmi says he knows nothing of greed. And it really does show, like, once he leaves, that's kind of Anakin's downward spiral. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so here we're getting the revelation. There's no father for Anakin. I carried him, I raised, I carried him, I gave birth to him, I raised him, yada, yada. Now, of course, back when this was written, I don't think that there was the whole, like, I don't know. I mean, who knows? We still don't know if George had ever written a Darth Sidious actually manipulated the midichlorians. But, it was obviously supposed to come off as like the virgin birth, kind of like, birth of Jesus, all that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people had an issue with it. I mean, it's fine. It's whatever. But it was never talked about until Phantom Menace, though. Like, back in the original trilogy, Anakin Skywalker is never the chosen one. He was just a powerful Jedi,
But it's also one of those.
We have Kitster.
Yeah, it's also one of those things. Like, I appreciate Qui-Gon's performance because, like, it's one of those, especially after listening to Master and Apprentice, where they, spoiler alert a little bit, but they talk about a prophecy of the chosen one, and she says no father, and you see the look on Liam Neeson's face of he's the chosen one. Like, it's something that he knows. It's
right, like
really,
it's something he's really thought about and keeps like a prominent mind to. Now, I just want to backtrack just a second, and of course, we have Jar Jar getting his tongue zapped from the binders, but I just want to talk about how Anakin's friend just straight up is like, "Good luck, Annie. You're gonna be bug squashed." Like, straight up, just like, "Yeah, Anakin's probably gonna die. Whatever. See you later." Like, just so like everything's just. It's just like death is so casual on Tatooine, That's
great call, by the way. I'm looking up this Phantom Menace toys, and yeah, it was called It was Comtech Reader.
Comtech Reader, that's it. Yep. Kitster's the only one hanging out with Annie. And I love the little dialogue we get between R2 and C-3PO. It's just a little flavor text, a little flavor dialogue of like, 3PO acknowledging to like R2. Yeah, you're right. He is very weird. Man, the sound design for the pod racers are just so cool. So we're getting Anakin. It's working. It's working. Now, which was your favorite pod of the pod racers? Because I actually had the Lego set of it was three of them. It was Anakin and Sebulba, and then I think it was Odie Mandrell was the third one. I can't remember.
Here's the scene that a lot of people hate, which I never really understood. Like, I can understand wanting to have the Force be the Force and that's it, but I don't mind an explanation of the Force.
Well, that's the thing is, like, it's very strange that a lot of people that I know in person, I think I've said this on the show before too, is like a lot of people I know that had an issue with midichlorians are also atheists that believe in science. It's just very like strange that it's like, okay, so you don't want an explanation for it in your fictional kind of quote unquote fake thing, but then in the real world you want an explanation for it. It's very strange to me, like it doesn't quite reconcile with myself. I never minded it because it's a matter of like, well, if you don't want the explanation, then the explanation Yoda gives in Empire Strikes Back also still applies,
Yeah.
Because the midichlorians aren't the Force. The midichlorians like are what the Force speaks through.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's, I don't know. I always thought it was made to be way bigger of a deal than people didn't pay attention when they were explaining what midichlorians were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think people interpreted it as the midichlorians were the Force, but it's not. It's the Force speaks through the midichlorians.
Yeah. I love Darth Maul's ship. So
Dude, the
cool.
Scimitar is my favorite ship of like all Star Wars ships.
It's like a mini Star Destroyer. Like it honestly is what it looks like, except for like the.
I had a toy for this too. I don't remember if it was the
I did
Lego
too.
or if it was the actual toy.
I remember having the actual toy.
I think it was the Lego because I think he has. I think it came with the little scooter thing that he flies away on, like the little skiff thing.
Oh yeah, I had. I remember I had the little skiff thing. It was one of those that you put the little like long piece into it and like pulled it back so it would like roll forward. You remember that?
Yeah. Yep. And I always thought these little guys are so cool. The little probe droid looking things that Darth Maul sends out into Mos Espa. And so here we are in the hangar where all the pod racers are. And it really is so cool how big the pod racers are. And you don't even really realize it when they're racing because obviously, you're comparing it to the vastness of the desert around them. But when you're in the hangar, these pod racers are huge. And they look so cool.
Honestly, Sebulbas might be one of my favorites just because I really like the design of them.
Yeah, it's kind of like a big, blocky, really like just cool looking design. And Sebulba getting massaged by some Twi'leks. Kind of strange. He's getting like a foot rub. And so here we have Qui-Gon and Watto making a deal. We let fate decide. And of course, he has a chance cube. It's weighted, obviously. And that's why when Watto rolls the die and it's Anakin, Watto knows something's up because obviously he uses the Force to control a weighted dice cube. And the smile that Jar Jar gives is so funny. And again, I want people to realize, like, look at all of the droids and the little things, and there's like a speeder way out in the background. There's so much detail in these movies that people just don't. I don't know if they choose not to look or if they're just not looking for it, but is so much detail in these prequel movies that just doesn't get appreciated.
Well, honestly, the Phantom Menace is the least, I would say, egregious out of all of them, because most people, when they think about CGI, they think about the scenes shot from Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, where they're just standing against a green or blue screen. So I think that's when it really comes into place. But yeah, no,
I mean, a lot of Coruscant is obviously green screened. A lot of Naboo in Attack of the Clones is all on location.
Yeah, the indoor scenes in particular, and that's because they shot it in Italy, especially the Phantom Menace. But a lot of stuff like Camino.
So here, I'm just sorry to interrupt you real quick. So we hear the Ratama, Korra, Ratama, like in the background with the droids probing around, and that's like an awesome kind of signature of like Darth Maul's presence.
Yeah,
you hear that because obviously the Duel of the Fates is Korra, Ratama, which is
or corn on the cob.
And I always love this character here.
I did too. Quadraneros.
And Quadraneros.
The homie, man.
I think Sebulba's actual, like the pod that he sits in, I think might be my favorite. Like it just looks really cool.
It looks like Hot Rod.
It looks right, exactly. It's very very George Lucas, you know what I mean? Because he loves all those like old school American hot rods.
And if we look closely, we'll see Warwick Davis. I think honestly
There's Odie Mendro.
the only problem that I have with these movies is just the constant changing after release of adding stuff, which I understand it's his vision, it's what he wants, but it makes it really hard and confusing to remember what's what. Because like all of those scenes in particular of them showing the different racers, I'm pretty sure most of those scenes weren't in the original.
No, I think they were.
Because some of them looked imposed, like they were added.
I think it's just the way the CG looks for him. And we have the second fart joke in the movie. P. Yusa. So what the green pod racer right behind Anakin, that was always one of my favorites. It's like the really, really large engines, but they're a little rounded on them. I always kind of loved that Sebulba kind of came off as just like that slimy greaseball kind of like greaser like racing guy. Like he's ripped right out of what was that old Hanna-Barbera racing show?
Oh man, you're hitting the deep cuts right now.
Like I can't remember the show, but like he's like right out of that. You know what I mean? And this is Qui-Gon basically straight up saying, like, I know you're force sensitive. So it's him saying use the force without use the force. And we hear the force theme, of course, as he's putting someone on. And I always wondered why. So we got Jabba the Hutt, and we got Bib Fortuna there as well. Bib Fortuna looks way different in this movie. Yeah. He's like way more pale. His head bulges, like the bumps on his head kind of look a little different. Bug Bolt's racer is pretty awesome looking too. I'm not gonna lie. The one that kind of looks like claws.
Yeah.
Like I love the like in retrospect it makes the interaction between like once you know that Qui-Gon knows that Padme is who she is, like it just makes it so much better where like Qui-Gon straight up is like, yo, I know what's going on, let me handle it.
Like I was saying earlier, because they had to reschedule, they had to refigure out things for principal photography. This scene was the last scene that Jake shot.
Right.
That one's really cool too, I'll admit.
So this is just super remnant.
There's
Warwick Davis right there. And he does play other masked characters in the movie as well, but you could clearly see it's him. So this just brings up a lot of memories of Star Wars Racer for N64. I think it was on PS1 as well, but the one I played was on N64.
See, the one that
was Racer Revenge on PS1, right?
Yeah.
It was like a re-release of it, but Anakin was Attack of the Clones era Anakin instead of Phantom Menace Anakin. It was very weird. And Ben Quadraneros with his quad engines having issues. But yeah, so just like everything about these scenes, like the way like the starting like when it lights up for like lap one, like just all of the way everything looks is just so nostalgic for me.
See, it's reminiscent for me. I remember the arcade game way more.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that too.
Just because it was so cool actually getting in the pod and doing like that. It's one of those things I feel like they just don't put that much care into stuff like that anymore.
Yeah.
And like the trilogy, you remember the trilogy arcade game too? Where you were controlling like the TIE fighter or the X-Wing? And you would play
Vaguely,
through
yeah.
like Return of the Jedi or Empire, like the snowspeeder chase.
We have Aura Singh in the background with her
Yep.
weirdly long fingers. Aura Singh is such a cool character. It's kind of a bummer that she just dies off screen in Solo.
Yeah.
I love that. So we just passed the scene where they pass a gated off, kind of like ramp, and I
There's
love
Tusken Raiders.
in the racer game you could just go right up that ramp and fly off, and so you're like aerial for a minute. So it's a nice little touch that they added that into the game. I love how like everyone straight up dies in this race except for
Yeah.
Anakin and Sebulba. So we have the Sand People shooting at them. Now, this is the first time they're ever acknowledged as Tusken Raiders. They were just Sand People back in episode 4. I love the way like there's the mirages that looks like water when they're flying. Like I thought that looked so cool. It's such a nice touch that people again underappreciated, I think.
Yeah.
Like right there, like it looks like there's water because of the way the mirages are on the sand. And you really do just get the sense of it. Oh, and here's Odomandro with his Pitroids. You really get the sense of how much George really loves, that old school kind of Americana kind of like muscle car type, like that type of stuff. Like you could really get that out of this race because it really is straight up just like an old school muscle car race, but just with futuristic muscle cars.
Yeah.
I love like the GoPro views of the pods too. So this guy, I can't remember his name, but in the green pod racer, that I think that's probably my favorite one. And Anakin with the slick move going up and around. Now, when you first saw this in theaters, what was your kind of impression of the pod race?
I loved it. I still love it. Like, is there any contention with the pod race
I don't
with
think
anybody?
so.
I don't think so either.
So Bobas are pretty cool. It's like it makes an X. Like the way, like if you put the two engines together, it would make an X. I always thought the sound design on the pod race was just so awesome. It just sounded so cool.
Yeah.
Now with this, it's like clearly Anakin's using the Force. Like he's just totally spitting at it. Like if that was me, I would have died already. I would have thrown up. And he has this magic magnetic thing that just pulls the binder over. I don't know. I love the markings on Anakin's pod. Like they look so cool. Like it's like almost anime, like just the way the markings are like on his like the pod where he's seated in. We got kids got some slick moves now. I love that Sebulba's sounds so much different too. Like Anakin sounds like just a straight up racer car, but Sebulba's pod it sounds like it kind of chugs,
Yeah.
It's almost like Sebulba's is like a diesel pod racer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. It's just got like this like heaviness to it.
Right.
That's what I love about sound design is whatever you can make really dictates what you're seeing. I would like to point out
these shots are just so cool. They're just like so like there's so much detail in the rocks all around them, And I love that you really can slowly tell like the amount of dirt like accumulating on Anakin's face.
Yeah.
And I love the way like his binders are like making the little flags on the ground fly off. Oh, and there's the service ramp I mentioned previously. Like I said, it's so cool that they actually added that to the game. Only you fly way farther in the game. And now the crowd just all of a sudden turns on Sebulba. Like just out of nowhere. Everyone's like, yeah, Anakin. And this was so cool too when Anakin's like almost hitting Sebulba's binders. I remember seeing that in theaters and thinking that it was like I was like 8 years old, nervous for Anakin. Like, oh my god, like he's about to get eaten up by these binders. I always wondered, like, what are Padme and Shmi watching them on? Like, are those like iPads before iPads were invented?
Yeah, pretty much.
Did you ever notice? I didn't really even realize it until recently either. The little radar behind Anakin in the pod.
Uh-uh.
Like, I always wondered what that did.
This really just shows his ingenuity, and I think it's really awesome.
Oh, of course, this whole pod race is showing like the fact that he can blend technology with the Force, which he then does when he loses all his limbs.
Yeah. See, and I know this is just because the ambient light, but whenever they're in complete sunlight is where Jar Jar really shines. It's when he's in low lit areas is when you can really kind of see
Oh, see, I
the
thought it was
quality.
I thought in low light you can hide some of the textures better.
Well, you can more clearly see the outline of him being a fully CGI. Like whenever he was talking with Padme in the ship when she was cleaning R2, I think you looked away, but you could clearly see, oh, that doesn't look like good CGI.
I love the little look that Qui-Gon gives Shmi and Padme. Where just for a split second, he's like, oh no, I don't know. And then, of course, Sebulba's pod goes crashing down. I love the little tantrum Sebulba throws. I don't know. There's something uncanny valley about that little, like, teenage Greedo.
Yeah,
The
his hair,
that
like
Rodian is like so weird looking because his head is so big.
yeah.
If I'm Anakin, I'm like, who are all you people?
Yeah.
Like, none of y'all even know who I was 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I love this.
Now, what I want to know is like, so in the Clone Wars movie, Anakin directly like meets with Jabba again. Like, does Jabba remember that Anakin was the winner of the Most Espa Open?
Probably not. He was asleep.
Yeah, that's true. And I always like the dirt line from the goggles on Anakin
Yeah.
after the race. It's a nice like little touch. And then we get Maul's little droid flying by while they're talking. And the first time I saw this movie, I didn't even catch that.
One of the things, and obviously we'll get to it when we watch Attack of the Clones, but this in particular, one of the things I really, really love about Attack of the Clones is when they come back to Tatooine, you see it looks like what Qui-Gon did changed Tatooine. Yeah.
Like Watto literally is like homeless now.
Like when he comes back, everything changes.
Yeah. It is like really true. Like Qui-Gon literally like ruined Watto's life. Like he had to sell Shmi.
Yeah. This has got to be so hard for her.
Yeah, like the look she gives him. The look Shmi gives Qui-Gon. And just a little subtlety of the Force theme while Anakin's talking to Qui-Gon about, becoming a Jedi.
Yeah.
It's not beating over your head. It's not grandiose. It's not very loud. It's just subtly underneath. Yeah. Qui-Gon probably should have told Anakin the whole, like, you're not allowed to have any attachments, like, now.
Yeah.
But I do love the idea of, like, Qui-Gon Jinn would have been able to handle Anakin's training. And that as valiantly as Obi-Wan tried to train Anakin, it was Qui-Gon that was really meant to. And I like the idea of the duel of the fates, like the battle between good and evil essentially at the end of the movie, and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul. I love the idea of that being named Duel of the Fates because it's literally deciding the fate of the galaxy. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's deciding, like, if Qui-Gon lives, he trains Anakin, and maybe things don't turn out the way they did.
I mean, technically, this is such. I don't like this argument, but I see the credibility in it. Technically, Anakin does bring balance to the Force. Would you agree? I mean, of course.
Yeah, I'm not even trying to dispute that. I just like the idea of like what if Qui-Gon had lived? Then yeah. I think Anakin would have turned out to just be, a quote unquote good Jedi. And that, I think you probably could bring balance to the Force
without killing all the Jedi
in a butterfly effect type of way. We're like, yes, that was one way of maybe bringing balance to the Force, but they also might have been able to bring balance to the Force by maybe just like, I don't know, killing Darth Sidious.
If there were any two Jedi in the universe that I think could successfully have brought the whole thing of the Grey Jedi mentality, I think it would have been either Luke or Qui-Gon. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, Qui-Gon definitely was the start of that kind of ideology where he, like, straight up, like in the novel Master and Apprentice, like they straight up say, like, Qui-Gon was given Obi-Wan as an apprentice to basically balance him out because Qui-Gon was so out there that Obi-Wan kind of brings him back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I always really appreciated that Qui-Gon, like Obi-Wan even in this movie says, like, he says like, "Come on, don't like disobey them again. Like, why you keep doing this?" I like that Qui-Gon's not really just a drone. Like he has his own ideas of the Force and ideas of, theories of why things are the way they are and all that. And I like the idea of the living Force versus just the cosmic Force.
Yeah. That's another thing I loved about Master and Apprentice is that scene where he cuts down the tree and then he uses the Force to like soothe it to death, the dying tree. Like I love that ideology. You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darth Maul just falls off a cliff on his little speeder bike. Could you imagine Darth Maul just runs Anakin over and this?
Yeah, it ends. Yeah.
Now the colorization of the lightsabers, I always thought was a little weird in this movie because Maul's is almost like an orange red, and Qui-Gon's is not really a green. It's kind of like I don't know. I just thought the colorization of the lightsabers in this movie is a lot different from Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, where like in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, they're clearly, red and blue and yellow, not yellow. Are there any yellow lightsabers in?
Not in.
I know Ahsoka has a yellow.
Yeah,
one.
right there. That's
like it's very orange, you know. But even later on, like I know you could say like it's the lighting of the desert and all that, but even like in the Theed battle, it still has that kind of weird colorization to it. Whereas it's clearly like a pure green, a pure red, a pure blue, purple in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith.
One of the things I really like here, it's very subtle. We know obviously that's the Sith apprentice, but he doesn't because the Jedi here believe that the Sith were extinguished. So I like the idea of they're like, what was that? He was like, I have no idea, but it was trained in the Jedi arts.
Right, and I love the idea just in the universe of like anytime someone sees a Sith and they think it's just a Jedi because they don't know what the Sith are.
Yeah. Now, has Theed always been a democracy, or are they switching towards it and the Trade Federation wants to keep them a monarch?
So the monarchy, it's not really a monarchy. The queen is basically like a president, where the queen is elected.
Yeah.
Which is where they don't just call it like a president or a prime minister or something. But then C.O. Bibble is the governor, like I said, so it's... And so we get this very real, pure moment. And this is, if you didn't know before, this is kind of the moment that straight up tells you, like, okay, Padme is the queen. Because she's the one, like, she goes and she sees C.O. Bibble's message and she really feels it. Jar Jar's feet on the table. Now, those I think are practical feet. I think those are those are real.
Yeah.
Like real props. And you got Jar Jar snoring in the background. Did Jar Jar's teeth ever bother you? I feel like they're kind of weird that they're so flat,
The only part of his body that bothered me was in the bongo when he gets like disoriented and his eyes like shut into themselves. They go like, oh, that's
like suck in a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know if you share the same sentiment, but it's one of those. This is also really important. This is where Anakin is giving the necklace to.
Yep, the Japor snippet. When did Annie have time to carve that for her?
So how old do we know how old Padme is in this movie?
I think she's 16. I think.
So growing up probably not, but either as an adult or growing up, did the whole love interest between them bother you? It always seemed weird to me.
I never took it as a love interest in this movie, at least.
No, yeah, definitely not.
I mean, Anakin definitely, you could tell, is like infatuated with her, but Padme, I think she always just kind of, she had like an affection for him, but I don't think it was like a weird romantic one. I think she just was like,
yeah. And then you see like in the Attack of the Clones when she's like, you've grown up. So I can see that. I can see that.
And here we have Rick Ollie returning again.
What's that actor's name that's walking with the guards?
The one that plays Chancellor Valorum, I don't remember.
Because he's huge. I don't remember what his
Oh
name
yeah, I
is.
remember. Like, I've heard interviews where like he signed onto this movie thinking he was going to be like in some kind of really cool political thing, and then he was just like against all green screens and stuff, and he's like, "What is this?" And so imagine what Anakin must be feeling right now, seeing like just walking onto this platform on Coruscant, seeing all these speeders and ships flying around, seeing a planet that's literally just one giant city. Like he must be like having like a culture shock, like total brain short circuiting of
Yeah.
like, oh my god, like this is like it must be so crazy looking at him. And I love the subtleties of Palpatine kind of weaving his own kind of ways of blocking things. Where like any other senator wouldn't have brought up the like there is a way of procedure, but he's like, no. This is me subtly telling you this is going to be harder than you think when it doesn't need to be harder than you think. Like I love the little things that Senator Palpatine does to get himself to Chancellor Palpatine.
Yeah. Do you think this was all CGI? Or do you think this was models too?
I think most of Coruscant, I think, is actually CGI. I just love the idea of Coruscant. Just like it's a planet that is made up of one giant city.
Yeah. This was actually the first scene that they shot. Yeah, this is Natalie right here.
Now I love how everything Palpatine is describing right now is everything he turns into as Chancellor. But Padme never calls him out on it. Yeah, that's Natalie. I also love that, like in the next scene when they go to the Senate room, to the Senate chamber, and Masameda is talking to Chancellor Valorum, and Palpatine is like, enter the bureaucrat. And it's like, but you keep Masameda on as advisor when you become Chancellor. Yeah, and so Padme is basically playing right into Palpatine's hand right now, where he's trying to funnel her down this path of, we need to do something now.
Yeah.
And in Queen's Shadow, the novel, it actually plays a big part in like Padme becoming a senator, where people are hesitant to trust her because of the way she kind of overthrows Chancellor Valorum for not doing what he wanted right when she wanted it. I love the Senate chamber scene. There's so many cool alien Jedi, like there's Yariel Poof with the long stalked neck. Obviously, we meet Kiadi Mundi and Plo Koon.
See, this is the big one here.
Yaddle.
This is the big one here that Yoda is back to CGI.
Right, because
he
the
was
puppet did not
puppeteered.
look right in the original.
That is true.
There's Adigalia in the background. Dude, Yariel Poof's head bobbling back and forth is so funny. It's like a metronome. I love how Yoda just calls him out. Yoda's like, I know your trick, Qui-Gon.
It's so funny going from Master to Apprentice. You can tell that the council was tired of Qui-Gon.
Yeah, like
So it makes the scene a lot more
well,
important.
it also adds a lot more. I mean, it's going to be a spoiler for you, but you obviously know, anyways, that Qui-Gon's not on the council.
Yeah,
He's not a master, so obviously you know that something's going to happen where he doesn't end up being on the council at the end of the book.
yeah,
But it's like that you take that into account too. That like the council gave him the chance to do things like this on the council and chose not to. So they're like, dude, we gave you this chance to do all these things to kind of reform or better the Jedi, the Jedi Order, and you turned us down. So like now you're coming back to us with this stuff.
yeah.
So like it must be frustrating for them too.
This is what. Yeah, this is when I came to see
So this is
Padme.
Natalie
She's
as
not
well for
here.
you. And the architecture is so interesting on Coruscant. It's so different. And I love that the Senate pods actually like fly out when they have the floor, quote unquote floor. I don't remember what the other advisor's name is, but Masameda is the one with like the horns. Now this is really bold. What Amidala is doing, because no one does this. You mean no one just comes out and says you're going to do this for me right now, or I'm going to get you kicked out. You know what I mean? Like the Senate, it's like a shock to the Senate because the Senate it's always procedures and it's always going through litigation and everything. And Padme Amidala, Queen Amidala, is just like, no, I'm not dealing with this. Like my country, my planet is under siege, and we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I like Palpatine's talking about enter the bureaucrat, but then he keeps the same advisors on.
It's one of those you see, like, it's so interesting about this thing as an adult is seeing Palpatine at the very beginning just tooling his way. So fascinating to watch.
I love that line when like to discuss this in a committee, like the like the delivery of that line, like it sounds so. She's this young queen, but she also is a take no BS queen. And I love that about.
Yeah. And how she straight called was like, I call for a change of power. Which is going to be me.
I do like that there's a couple of the name drops that he mentions for like the other candidates. One of them is Bail Antilles of Alderaan.
Yeah.
Who is Captain Antilles of the Tantive 4, which is a ship that Leia has in New Hope. Not related to Wedge Antilles, apparently. Wedge Antilles is from
And Obi-Wan just set the line of, if you listen to them, you would be on the council, but you're going against them again.
Right. And that's, like I said, in Master and Apprentice, like he straight up got the chance.
Yeah.
And turned him down. So it's like. And I love Yoda's kind of. You can tell Yoda is sensing Anakin's feelings with just the way that they animated him. And Anakin just straight up is like, damn, these guys are reading my mind. And of course, this is one of the most iconic lines of the whole saga is, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering.
It's one of those like Master and Apprentice, and of course in Attack of the Clones, where Dooku's 100% right, but he just went to, I guess you could call the radical part, the radical side of it. Like Qui-Gon and Dooku are one and the same coin, but Dooku just took it.
Well, yeah, Dooku definitely fell to the dark side, whereas Qui-Gon tries to kind of stay central.
Yeah.
I love this moment with Jar Jar is so like really actually powerful because he's just totally honest with it with Padme. We're like, you don't like us because you're afraid of us because the Gungans, as goofy as we are a powerful species. And like, I love that kind of subtle moment of Jar Jar, and it gets overlooked by all the other silliness of Jar Jar in the movie. But he straight up says like that's probably why you don't like us, isn't it? And she just can't say anything back because it's true. And the way he just says, "I will be Chancellor," like it's Darth Sidious pulling the strings right there, and like he's straight up telling her, like, "I'm pulling the strings here. Don't worry about it." Padme is like, "I wasted my time, and you wasted my time," and I like that she kind of loses faith even in Palpatine right there. Coruscant at night is so cool looking. I keep saying I know I keep saying that. I keep repeating "cool," like the word "cool," but that's just like I don't know how else to explain. Like I just love the look of the kind of futuristic tone of Coruscant. It reminds me, you know what it reminds me of? Like the kind of like sky, like the skyscapes or whatever you want to call it at night. It reminds me of. Do you ever play F-Zero on Super Nintendo? It kind of reminds me of like F-Zero. I don't remember what level it would be, but there was a level where it's like you're like playing over like a giant city. It reminds me of that a lot. And Yaro Poof's head still bobbing like a metronome in the background. And I love that little moment right there where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon kind of like glance at each other. And Obi-Wan is like, "Do you really mean that?" Like he gives that look of like, "Are you sure you really mean that?" And Qui-Gon looks at him like, "Just shut up and accept it."
Yeah.
Now, if you're the Jedi Council, do you let them take this boy with them?
No, 100% not.
Although I guess the idea is that like they're not accepting him into the Jedi Council, so he's like Qui-Gon's responsibility. I'm not allowed to train you, so I'm going to train you by not training you. I love this line. Your focus determines your reality. Like, think about what that means. Your focus determines your reality, and it's like it's not just a Jedi thing. You could apply that to real life.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon really, I think, is. I don't know if there is such thing as a perfect Jedi, but I think Qui-Gon is like the ideal Jedi, where he's not blinded by the dogma of the the Jedi Council, but he's also not so kind of jaded where he's like in Dooku territory, where Dooku is clearly fallen, into the darkness. Even if they don't know he's fallen to the Sith, they know he's not, really a full Jedi anymore. Obviously, if he leaves the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
And I love that line too, where he says, "You'll learn to quiet your mind. You'll hear them speaking to you." That kind of you could get out of Master and Apprentice as well, where like this, there's a scene where Obi-Wan kind of internalizes, and I love Amidala's outfit there too, kind of reminiscent of like a Twi'lek. But yeah, there's a scene in Master and Apprentice, the book, where Obi-Wan like finally learns, like he quiets his mind, and then he falls into like this trance where he's like wielding his lightsaber and he's seeing everything before it happens, and he's able to kind of take out this army that's going against him, and it's just really,
which is a scene I
really
loved. Which is a scene I loved in Alliances. Whenever Anakin, it's like the book narrates bolt coming from the right, coming from the left, coming from behind.
right.
Like
And he calls it double vision.
Yeah, I loved that. I thought it's such a cool idea to kind of explain part of what they can do, part of what a Jedi can do.
And so they are back in the atmosphere over Naboo. Yeah, this outfit is so cool. It is very Twi'lek looking.
Yeah, you can see Kira in the back.
And sounds like Nate's doing construction in the background while we watch.
Wife's getting ready.
Oh. So they're landing kind of in the middle of nowhere. And of course, this goes back to Jar Jar saying, there's a sacred hidden city that they go to, which is weird because wouldn't you think if there was an army attacking the planet that they would stay underwater? Like, why would they go to land where the enemies are? Like,
I think they.
I thought that like back when I first saw this movie when I was little, I was like, does it make any sense to leave the water city?
See, this scene's so important, and it's one of those that you don't really dwell on. Well, I think what Jar Jar's explaining, they retreated. Like something happened and made them retreat back to land because they were in hiding.
Right,
I think that
coming back from Oda Gunga saying they're all gone. Yeah, that I do like you said. They're going back to that, like Qui-Gon saying you're a wiser man than me, and you learn that in like Master and Apprentice that like Obi-Wan is a lot smarter of maybe not a smarter Jedi, but he's like very pragmatic, whereas Qui-Gon is very like uses his feelings.
I remember those blasters, the Theed blasters were so cool with the rappel.
Yeah, with the grappling hooks on them.
Yeah. We're not there yet, but seeing it on his hilt.
Right, like they didn't use it yet, but they're there. So this is Keira Knightley, clearly, obviously because Padme is about to walk up too. But I mean, now that I'm older, I can like clearly see the difference between Keira Knightley and Padme. But back then, I thought they looked really similar.
Yeah, you had when she pops out, you're like, "What's going on?" Yeah, I had no idea.
And again, them ADRing Natalie's voice over her obviously helps sell it too. Anakin's look. Yeah, and the way Qui-Gon looks over to Obi-Wan, like, yeah, I knew the whole time. And Obi-Wan being like, damn, she hoodwinked me. And I do like the voice change in Natalie Portman, where like now she sounds more earnest versus the very regal sounding Amidala voice. You know,
Yeah.
and Jar Jar's
Jar
like,
Jar.
do I kneel? Do I not kneel? I don't know. Boss Nass is such a character, man. And all it took was them saying, "Yeah, we're okay with you," for Boss Nass to be like, "All right, sure." So, first of all, how did R2D2 wheel all the way out there in the middle of the wood? I just realized that. Like, wouldn't he have like gotten snagged on like a twig or something? The second and final line of Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Yes, my master.
Listening to Ray Park's actual voice wasn't terrible, but I guess they wanted a more.
He's
like,
definitely not. They wanted. I think they wanted to counter the kind of like visceralness to his combat style with a more
regal.
with a more kind of like powerful and kind of educated voice. Not that
Yeah.
I'm not saying Ray Park sounds like an idiot, but I think they wanted to have
More
a
like
very,
the Queen's English kind of.
right, with
Yeah.
kind of to like show there's two sides of Maul. He's a very intelligent person and a very like angry person at the same time.
Yeah.
And Sam Witwer has even talked about like him taking over the voice of Maul in the Clone Wars, and how they wanted to do it a little less. He didn't mind doing a little less British because Maul has just lost his mind and he's just angry.
Yeah.
In the Clone
It
Wars.
makes more sense for the characterization. I don't know if you share the same sentiment, but the thing I really love about the Star Wars movies is every single time I watch them, it's like I'm watching them for the first time. Like there's always something that I miss.
Oh yeah, I've said that a bunch of times in the past, where every time I watch a Star Wars movie, there's always something new that I had missed previously. So the thing to keep in mind too with this whole final segment of the movie is that Naboo, they're on their own. You know what I mean? They don't have. There's no reinforcements coming. Like they literally like are doing this all by themselves, and if they fail, they're screwed.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, if he needed to really be sold on how evil Sidious was, that moment he straight up like, yeah, this girl that I was just talking with like 20 minutes ago in the movie, just go kill her. I don't care. Just go kill her.
Like my agenda's already been furthered. Like I don't need her anymore.
Right. Like she has now helped make me be the most powerful person in the Senate. So I don't need her anymore. Go kill her. And I do really love the sequence of like the Gungans and their mounts like walking through the fog. And then we're getting the shields activating. And I thought these shields were so cool too, where it forces close combat because you can walk through them if you go through them slowly, but blaster fire is too fast to penetrate it. Like I just thought that. And this is all this sequence with the the battle droid tanks essentially kind of floating over the hill. These are all models.
Yeah. You know what's really kind of funny? Do you think that we would have gotten that scene in Infinity War without this scene? Because they look almost one for one. Landscape and everything in Wakanda.
No, I think that's the thing is this movie really set the tone for so many other things that we just kind of take for granted.
Yeah. It's also one of those things that like, especially watching the behind the scenes, George had such great ambitions that due to just money and the technology of the time, they just couldn't do. Like whenever the special effects supervisor, they were on a video chat, they were talking about how he wanted the like orbs, the Gungan orbs to be animated. He was like, oh, I want them to basically be like water balloons filled with Vaseline. Like after they explode, they still like expunge out. And obviously that's not what we see. They just act like shock balls basically. But that probably had to do with the fact they couldn't either afford to do it or just couldn't technically do it. But I see what you mean about Qui-Gon saber. It's not like an emerald green. It's very butte.
Yeah, like they're like they look almost like vintage colors versus like they're more like they're a lot more saturated and vibrant in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith.
There's first Wilhelm scream. Well, one of them.
And we got R2-D2 getting sucked up into the.
Oh, there it is. I loved these ships as a kid, but I think now one of my favorite starfighters is definitely, I don't remember the model name, but the ones that Anakin and Obi-Wan use in Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, I know them too because I was just playing in Battlefront 2, and I just so bad with remembering stuff this episode.
Yeah, but the Naboo Starfighter was my favorite, and then after seeing that one, I was like, okay, I love this one. I love this one.
So I think I had a normal toy for that, and I had the Lego version of it.
Yeah, the Lego version of it was super cool. Yeah, this is easily the scene that cost the most money because they talk about it all throughout the behind the scenes of like this CGI, is the big scene.
Robots versus aliens, you know. Yeah. I mean? So it's like literally is
and just the entirety of the Trade Federation theme. I love it here. The dun dun dun, like it just plays throughout. It's and the way they just fall out like this, I think is super cool. Yeah, it's having just seen Infinity War recently, seeing all of this with the Wakandans, it's like so identical. It's crazy.
Oh, the Infinity! I thought you were talking about Endgame. So no. The Infinity War scene, yes, that's like it is. That I thought of the battle for Naboo when I saw Infinity War. You're absolutely correct. Yeah, I was thinking. I thought you meant Endgame.
No, yeah, Infinity War. Ouch time. And here's the scene where we're getting the battle droids in formation going through the shield.
And like they slowly move through it, and the way even the droids react to it, it's kind of like what you said with Obi-Wan, where like they're not quite sure if it's gonna work.
And immediately Jar Jar falls off.
And what are these called? Boomas?
I don't remember.
It's supposed to be like Boomer, but like they say Booma because they're Gungans.
Yeah. Okay, so you can see the effect there where it just rolled out. So they were able to do it for at least the big ones.
Yeah.
Stay in that cockpit.
I love how Panaka says red group, blue group, everybody this way. Why didn't he just say everybody this way? And here we go. Here's the big, the scene everyone talks about it in this movie with the red Sith eyes and the horns. And by horns, I mean the horns of the Duel of the Fates, but he also has horns.
Yeah.
Darth Maul, of course, talking about. Now, this in the theaters, when I saw this at 8 years old, I was like, whoa, like what is happening right now? Like it was surreal, like this music and Darth Maul when he reveals it's a double-bladed lightsaber.
I think this is easily one of. Oh, here we go. Yeah, easily. This is one of those things that they ruined. I think in the trailer. I wholeheartedly agree with that. If they would have not shown that, I think that would have made that surprise. It still made it good, but I can see the argument for wish we wouldn't have seen that in the trailer.
And Anakin stumbles his way into piloting a Naboo fighter. I love that Padme doesn't even acknowledge like Anakin just flew off when he wasn't supposed to. And I love like the arrogance of Maul. Like he just like throws that, like he force throws that thing against the wall out of anger. Like obviously he's opening the door with it, but it's like he could have just used the force to open the door, but instead he throws the thing at the door switch to open it. And like even just the little kick he gave, like he kicked Qui-Gon in the face like earlier.
It's so hard, man. I really can't decide which scene, because of the battle and the music, I love more, this one or Battle of the Heroes. It's really, really hard.
Now, I like this battle because you can tell Maul had scouted this whole like area out beforehand. He knew exactly where he wanted to lead them to. He knew that he wanted to separate them by leading them down the shield corridor.
Yeah.
I think my first instinct is to say Battle of the Heroes is the quote unquote better one, just because of the fact that it's so emotional, because it's, it's two Jedi fighting essentially. I mean, it's obviously Anakin's now a Sith, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's our two heroes fighting each other. And so I think that emotion kind of makes you think it's better. But if you actually look at the choreography and like the way that the battle itself is kind of directed and the emotions from just the battle, if you're not taking into account the participants, I think that the Duel of the Fates might actually be the better one.
I think I like Duel of the Fates better visually, just because I don't have a big problem, but especially after the sequel trilogy lightsaber combat, I have a problem with the rotoscoping for the lightsabers, especially in Revenge of the Sith. How just like fat and wavy they look at times, whereas in the sequel trilogy, they're a concise beam. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so, see, I love the way they looked in Revenge of the Sith.
See, visually, I think I like Duel of the Fates better in that sense. It adds some like awesomeness to the visuals, but like I love the way the lightsabers look in the sequel trilogy. I love them.
The sabers in the sequel trilogy definitely seem like they have a lot more weight to them.
Well, it's because they're actual like force effects lightsabers with weight to them, rather than just
right. But even like the way because they've tweaked the sound design in the sequel trilogy, where like they definitely have a weightier, even just a sound to them.
Yeah, especially Kylo's.
Well, especially Kylo, but even like Anakin / Luke's that Rey uses in the end of Force Awakens, like when they're like clashing, even that one, like when Finn lights it up, and it just seems meatier than when Anakin lit up that saber. You know? When it's the same saber. And here we get the grappling hooks you were talking about before. It is a little silly looking at them.
It is.
But
it
like,
is a little bit.
But it's fine.
The idea is so cool.
It is Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like that. But the grappling hook, that scene felt a little more Star Trek than Star Wars, though.
Yeah.
But like the smoke effects in the background with the lighting coming through the
ambient lighting, yeah.
It's just so brilliant the way, like, if you actually dissect the battles,
so
like,
this is
lightsaber battles. Darth Maul is so brilliant the way he like leads them around and lures them into areas where he'll have a better kind of
So
like
this
a
is
better angle or a better like way of combating two people at once because he lured them around so that one's on one side, one's on the other instead of
so that scene where he just launched himself off from the platform is kind of cool because whenever they originally were doing it, they had him on a springboard, and Luke and George was like, "You got to redo that because it looks like he's on a spring." So what they did was had like all the stunt doubles and the stunt coordinator holding up a wooden plank that he's crouched on, and then they just push him up and he launches him onto the platform. And then this scene's super important because you can tell the difference in Master and Apprentice here.
like Qui-Gon being a master
Yeah.
and Maul being an apprentice.
No, well,
Even with Anakin, with Obi-Wan too.
yeah, Obi-Wan too. But yeah, you're right, both of them. He's
Well,
like, he's like,
okay, so you kind of get a little bit of everything here because you get like Qui-Gon's the master and Obi-Wan's the apprentice, where like Qui-Gon's very like he's meditating, whereas Obi-Wan's like anxious. But then you also get like those are elements of the Jedi, but then the Sith, like he's just angry and he's pacing around like a rabid animal.
yeah.
And like the Sith, to keep their momentum flowing, they have to stay angry. So he's trying to stay angry, but Qui-Gon's trying to meditate and let go of everything. Yep, boomers. Boomers, I don't know. The ping ball noise, like the noise that the boomers make, is like so. It's like a little silly.
Yeah, the boing, boing, boing.
Yeah, like it sounds like a cartoon kind of. And again, Jar Jar just stumbles into everything that he does. And the droidicas are so cool.
Yeah.
Again, I know I keep saying that, but like the designs, I just really love the designs in this movie. And like I can understand if you're comparing this movie to the original trilogy, like as far as the designs and everything, like yes, everything looks more futuristic in the past, but you also got to recall like where did they go in the original trilogy that was supposed to ever be futuristic? They never actually
Right.
go to Coruscant.
Hey,
And I
well,
mean,
Bespin.
on the Star Destroyer and on the Star Destroyers or like the Death Star, those all look futuristic-ish. I mean, I know the panels look silly because it's 1977 and they didn't actually wire a whole panel together. But like when Luke shoots it and to shut the door, then the panel just falls off.
Yeah.
Like that type of stuff. That's just because of the limitations of like the production budget. You know what I mean? But
It's also one of those things too, like it makes sense for the rebellion to not have a whole bunch of futuristic stuff because they are going against a powerhouse being the Empire.
and they're essentially a Splinter Cell. You know what I mean? They
exactly.
they talk about that in the show, in the Rebels TV show, where like they are just trying to scrap together. Like they don't have any futuristic stuff.
And I think they doubled down on that in the sequel trilogy too with the fact
I love the look that Obi-Wan just gave Qui-Gon, where he's like he's like impressed with his like how good his master is fighting, but now he starts to get nervous. And then the final blow. Now, like, why doesn't Maul just like cut Qui-Gon in half? Like, you think it's like just overconfidence where he just stabs him, and it's almost like leaving like a like it's almost like a taunt to Qui-Gon or to Obi-Wan.
So.
I mean,
I very
like a
much
taunt to
think
Obi-Wan
so.
that he just stabs him and leaves him. And I love how they still are not done with the trickery.
Yeah.
Now that I think was Keira Knightley's voice.
This one's a decoy. Yeah.
That's like the decoy isn't really the decoy. Like,
See, this I like. It's very subtle. Like you wouldn't think that the queen, like in this type of ideology, the queen wouldn't be. She would have bodyguards take care of this. But the fact that she's armed and ready to go in her throne,
right? Like it shows how like even though the Naboo are civilized, they're also still not fools. You know. Yeah, and like I love the way Maul just kind of taunts him with the way he's standing, and I also love that
Obi-Wan
both
getting
of them
psyched up.
sensed right before the energy shield's about to like close because they ignite their sabers right before it opens. You know.
Yeah.
Now this was not sped up at all. This fight, and it's like,
yeah,
it's really Ray Park and Ewan McGregor right here.
Yeah.
I think this sequence is the best single sequence of any lightsaber battle in the entire saga.
Yeah.
It's so visceral and like you could feel it. You know what I mean?
And there goes Obi-Wan's saber falling down the shaft.
Now Obi-Wan goes through what 3 sabers before he lands on the one he had. No, 2.
No, 2.
That one. Now he doesn't keep Qui-Gon's in.
No,
because I always just figured because he loses the one in Attack of the Clones, he loses in the Geonosis.
Yeah,
he gets captured in Geonosis. So the one that he ultimately has in Revenge of the Sith that he then carries on with him through A New Hope is that one's totally different. That one he doesn't even get until Revenge of the Sith. But
yeah, so
I always just figured he would keep Qui-Gon's and maybe just like find a new kyber crystal to put in it or something as like an homage to him or something. So I wonder what happens with Qui-Gon's lightsaber. Like, does he like put it in like his quarters at the Jedi Temple as like a what's the word? Like to honor him or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this is a great scene right here. This is where Anakin's destroying the ship and everyone's like, wait, who did that? And they see one of theirs coming out. So actually, as far as his saber in Attack of the Clones, he does do an homage to Qui-Gon, because if you look at the saber he built for Attack of the Clones, it's longer. Like it looks a little bit more like Qui-Gon's.
Yeah, I always thought Qui-Gon's was the most practical looking saber.
Yeah.
Like just it looks like it looks like it's made to be gripped. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this is where he destroys the Trade Federation ship and all the droids go down. Just him taunting Obi-Wan.
I know. I love like Darth Maul just slashing the metal to like spray at him. Yeah, so you look like Qui-Gon's just looks like it looks like a grip, you know what I mean? Like it actually looks like he's supposed to hold it. And I love Maul sensing like there's something up with Obi-Wan. Like he senses the confidence in Obi-Wan. Now, I was always kind of confused by the blood spurting out of Maul when he cuts him in half. Because like I know they needed to show
that he was cut in half.
That he was cut in half. But lightsabers never
cauterize.
But at the same time, in A New Hope, when he cuts off Ponda Baba's arm,
it's bloody.
There is blood, so it's like. And I love the way Qui-Gon kind of just like brushes Obi-Wan's face.
Yeah.
Where he's like, you get kind of all of the history of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, like all of their trials and tribulations together. And Qui-Gon is like, Qui-Gon's trusting him with what Qui-Gon thinks is the greatest responsibility in the whole galaxy, which is training Anakin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it is a major thing that Qui-Gon is asking of Obi-Wan. And you get that with just that little brush of Obi-Wan's face. And you could even tell like Obi-Wan understands how big of a deal this was to Qui-Gon in the way that he kind of like puts his nose to Qui-Gon's head as he passed away.
Yeah. Do you think that's the closest that Obi-Wan potentially goes to the dark side? Because you feel his anger in that scene.
I don't think he's necessarily
close to the dark side. No, but that's where
I
emotion...
didn't take it as that, but I took it as just like he understands he's on his own now. You know what I mean? And like he not only is he on his own as a Jedi, but now he also has the responsibility of Anakin beneath him. You know what I mean? Whereas like any normal apprentice that becomes a Jedi Knight that takes a Padawan, they still would normally have their master to still go back to if they needed advice. But now Qui-Gon's gone. He's really on his own, and he has Yoda. Where's the scene we're currently in now, he has Yoda. But Yoda, clearly, he's very dogmatic still. He doesn't learn really the error of his ways until Revenge of the Sith when it's too late. And so Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan kind of knows like he is really on his own training Anakin for most of Anakin's life. And I really like the theory. I don't know if there's any validity to it. I don't know if George ever planned on doing it, but I always liked the idea that Qui-Gon was actually Anakin, or sorry, Qui-Gon was actually Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan was actually Qui-Gon. And when Liam Neeson's character dies, who would be, he was Obi-Wan, that Qui-Gon Jinn, who is Ewan McGregor, actually takes on the mantle of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Which I always like that idea. I mean, it's not true because that's not what happened, but I like that idea that I think was originally floated around for Phantom Menace, where you would think Qui-Gon or Liam Neeson was Obi-Wan the whole time, and then he dies, and you're like, wait a minute, but Obi-Wan's not dead. I love the music in this scene. The funeral pyre for Qui-Gon Jinn. Now, I feel like Yoda actually looks really good in this scene with the low light.
Yeah.
I feel like this is actually the most realistic we've seen Yoda look since the puppets.
And he's just in earshot. Like,
like he hears them talking about it. Yeah. Now, I love this theme in the celebration theme because it is literally the Emperor's theme, but in a major key instead of a minor key.
Yeah.
It's da 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 da, and the Emperor's theme, it's a men's choir. It's like monks singing it basically, and it's way darker sounding, but it's the same phrasing.
Notes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's literally this is literally Senator Palpatine or Chancellor Palpatine or Darth Sidious basically saying like, whoever loses, I win.
Yeah.
And he orchestrated this whole thing, and he pulled this whole thing off. And there's Evan Peel with his one eye. And Boss Nass with Captain Tarpals and Jar Jar Binks joining Padme Amidala, Queen Amidala.
Young Jedi Jake Lloyd, young Padawan Jake Lloyd,
and Natalie Portman.
And
now Natalie Portman is, they're not using doubles anymore once she reveals herself. So
yeah,
and that's it. That's the Phantom Menace, produced by Rick McCallum. I don't know, man. What do you think going back through this movie?
I mean, it definitely doesn't. I mean, it's. I don't want to say it doesn't deserve the hate that it got because I feel like that's overplayed. I feel like everyone says that, but it's one of those that it's an enjoyable movie, but it's not for every Star Wars fan. Like me and you, we enjoy seeing the whole political debate going on. We enjoy seeing the seeds being sown for what we're going to see later on. But some people, that this is. I feel like this is the least dramatic soap opera effect that the original trilogy had, because I think people say it's a galactic soap opera, the original trilogy, especially, kind of makes sense, if you dumb it down completely. Whereas this one is definitely more of a political movie.
Right. The Phantom Menace specifically, and to a lesser extent, Attack of the Clones and Return of the Jedi, or Revenge of the Sith, sorry. It's about the galaxy. And, obviously it's about, the chosen one and bringing balance to the Force and all that. But especially Phantom Menace, it's about, like, seeing what the rest of the world is up to. That's Chancellor Overarm, yes. It's about seeing, like, what the rest of the galaxy is up to and, like, what's the state of the galaxy. You know what I mean? And seeing that galaxy devolve as time goes on, to where once we get to episode 4, we see it's all in ruins and it's all oppressed by the Empire.
And that's one of the things I really like about Clone Wars, is they really dive more into that. Like, they really showcase that. That's what I think one of the best things about the Clone Wars is it's the galaxy as a whole. It's not just the Skywalker story.
Right.
It's one of those things
What was that?
Hold on one second.
I don't know if your video is off, by the way.
Yeah, it is. I know.
Oh.
It's one of those things that you see, Marvel's doing their What If animated show.
And they've done the What If comics forever too.
But it's one of those, I would like to see an animated what if Qui-Gon didn't die. What if he trained Anakin? It'll never happen, just because that'll put a lot of thought into people's minds and feel like it would devalue the prequels. But it would be interesting to see.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting. I like talking about that, like the what ifs of that. Yeah, man, I just wish people would give the Phantom Menace more of a chance, because like you said, there's a lot of Star Wars fans where the original trilogy is their Star Wars and that's it, and they don't want to know anything more about the Force. They don't want to know anything more about Anakin Skywalker, and that's fine. But I love dissecting every little thing about this universe, and I think that the Phantom Menace definitely does an excellent job of kicking that off, that mindset off of, like, learning more about the galaxy and seeing what's in all these little nooks and crannies around the galaxy.
Now, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Attack of the Clones again, because it's not that I don't like it, but out of the prequel trilogy, I feel like it's my least favorite. So I'm excited to see it again with your perspective, to see if you can sway me as far as viewing it in a better eye. You know what I'm saying? There's parts of Attack of the Clones I love, but, like Revenge of the Sith is easily my favorite in the prequel trilogy. Easily my favorite. It's honestly one of my favorite Star Wars movies. I think Empire still holds. It's honestly a toss-up, especially rewatching them with my wife when I showed her them. It was really a toss-up between which one I love more, Return or Empire. But Revenge is definitely high up there for me. I just think it's so important of a movie.
Yeah, and like, I try not to rank movies just in general. But I mean, if I had to rank them, I would say Revenge of the Sith is probably my favorite of the prequels. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like in Attack of the Clones that you just might not pick up on, or that you just might not have noticed. And so I'm really excited to go through Attack of the Clones, man. I'm excited to try and sway you towards that movie.
I'm pretty sure that seeing Clone Wars throughout a couple different times, I'll see Attack of the Clones in a different light, because I feel like the way Master and Apprentice gives better context for this movie in some aspects, I feel like Clone Wars does the same for Attack of the Clones.
Definitely. And Queen Shadow does as well. I got to re-listen to Queen Shadow, because I feel like I missed the point of that book. I feel like it just kind of ends and nothing really happens. Like, all the stuff that happens in it is really cool and interesting, but it's all like side stuff or like little details. And I feel like there was no major arc. So I got to go through it again, because I feel like I missed something in it. So, but yeah. So for the next episode after this, I think we're probably going to go back to normal episodes for a couple episodes. And then we'll try and get together for an Attack of the Clones commentary soon as well. But I definitely want to try and bank a couple episodes as well, so in case we don't have time to do the Attack of the Clones one, we still have stuff to post. But I think that's going to do it for our Phantom Menace commentary track. I know there was a lot of silence in some areas because we're trying to watch the movie at the same time, and so hopefully there wasn't too much silence for anyone listening. But if you're watching without actually listening without watching the movie, but if you were watching along with the commentary track, then hopefully that filled in some silent spots. But yeah, sounds like Nate's got to get going for the day, so we're going to call it here. But thank you all for listening again, and we'll catch you all very soon. May the force be with you all.